In this episode of Today in News Tech, we are featuring a recent webinar from Our Hometown and Online Media Campus, in which Matt discusses tips on responsive websites and native app design.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Definitely want to encourage everyone to locate the questions and chat panel. Go ahead and say hello in there just so you have it handy. These are always better when there's more questions. We're going to be talking about the opportunity in the mobile audience today. We really see it as a huge opportunity for newspapers going forward. At Our Hometown, we develop WordPress websites that integrate with native apps. We've done this for hundreds of community newspapers, so we have quite a bit of experience and data on how local audiences are using these products. So in the next 30 to 45 minutes, we will discuss the size of the mobile audience in the United States, what to focus on when designing a mobile website, how to use native apps to drive engagement with your readers, and lastly, some other opportunities to grow your share of the mobile audience. So I got a couple surveys for you guys here. This is going to be fun. Just kick it off and just kind of lead into some of the stats I mentioned. So this is just kind of a thought experiment. The last time you looked at your newspaper's website, just think back to that moment. What kind of device were you using? Computer, smartphone, or tablet? Now let me start the poll here. So the idea behind this is to just demonstrate what's our default. Usually when we're in work mode, we're kind of just looking at the computer. You want to proofread an article or just see how an image gallery came out on the website. You might go to the computer. So let's end the poll, share the results. I see 71% on the computer, 29% on the smartphone. A second poll, last time you checked email, what kind of device were you using? Computer, smartphone, or tablet? Let's do the end poll, share results. So definitely more skewed on the mobile. You know, the majority having smartphones. The apps for email are so great on smartphones. If you're a smartphone user, you're probably going to use your phone. Some tablet mixed in there, but definitely it's the inverse of, you know, what you do to check your own website. Okay, now survey 3. What percent of US internet traffic was mobile in 2021? So most people are guessing 50, let's see, let me end the poll and share those results. 35%, 54, and 61, kind of a split. Most of the people on the higher end. Okay, and so the answer was 54%. That 61 was to kind of throw you. I think, we're definitely going there and we're on that trajectory, but we're not quite over the 60% yet. But it's clearly on an onward trajectory for years. This has been happening. It had a huge spike in 2016. Interesting drop here. I don't know what this was in 2018, but this, I think we all know what this was this shutdown. A lot of people just moving, more stationary, so less mobile use, but it's on the up and up again. And again, just trying to give you a sense of the size of the opportunity here. Or one of the last surveys here, over what percent of Americans spend 3 hours per day or more on their phones? 30, 45, 60, or 75%. 3 hours per day or more. Okay, looks like all our results are in already. Share results. Most people guessed 60, a few 75. The answer is 75%. If you look at this link for the first time and you don't hit their paywall, you'll see that above the 3 hours, it adds up to 75. Fifth poll. Okay, this is the last one for a while. According to Pew Research, what percent of Americans, this is the one that really counts, right? This is the most relevant. I've been building up to this the whole time. We're getting more and more focused. What percent of Americans say they get their news on a smartphone or tablet? 15, 32, 57, or 86. We have 5 out of 9. Almost everyone's got their answers in. And for a while there, it was 100% guessing 86%. Then we had 1 at the end come in with 32. The answer was, in fact, 57%. So that 86 was, again, to kind of throw you a little bit. Still an impressive fact. The majority of Americans are accessing news on mobile devices. And that's the whole United States, all news. According to our stats, and we work exclusively with local newspapers, we're seeing in the range of 60 to 75% coming from mobile, depending on the website. It's kind of all over the place there, but each website, is consistent with that level of traffic. And we also did see a dip in our data in 2020, which was interesting. With the majority of your audience accessing your site on mobile, it just makes sense for your digital strategy to focus on the mobile experience. At least half the time, you should be thinking about mobile. And so just kind of a pro tip here, we encourage all of our customers to check their site regularly on a mobile device. When we're designing sites, we're doing it with the mobile inspect tool, always checking back and forth. That's one way to do it, or just pull it up on your phone. There's two ways to serve your mobile audience: mobile responsive design templates or native iOS and Android apps. With mobile responsive design, the website knows when the reader is visiting from a smartphone and automatically turns a multi-column desktop site into a single column mobile presentation. But because it's automated, there's always going to be problems. Like not every situation is going to work. It's not going to behave exactly how you expect. So, that's just something to keep in mind. It's not always going to lay out the way you imagine on mobile. So that's why you just need to be checking it. Most websites are mobile responsive by default. I think it's definitely the standard now. So if you get on a site that doesn't blow up the text and you have to pinch and zoom to read it, that's unresponsive. You almost never see those anymore. But, because they're so common, and, if you're not actively checking your site on mobile, you may have some common issues pop up. I just want to, draw everyone's attention to leaderboard ads, especially, can become unreadable. Because if you're, again, like if you design that graphic, had the font size work on the desktop, it's going to shrink, almost 25% of the size when it goes down to the smartphone. So we recommend using medium rectangle ads instead for mobile. So, the same advertiser, you would have either two types of ads or just use medium rectangle across the board. In general, just that ad size is better for mobile. And this is one example of where you're kind of forcing the website to not be responsive because you're telling to do one thing on mobile and a different thing on desktop. But sometimes we do have to make these exceptions. Subscribe button or other important calls to action don't appear at the top of the mobile homepage. That can happen on WordPress, for example. It renders the mobile site top to bottom, left to right. If your subscribe button is the top of the right column, by default, it's going to show up in the middle of the website. So, we just have to use some CSS to force a mobile only button. It's a very simple fix, but it's just something that if you overlook, then, all this traffic, half of your traffic is not seeing the website. It's not seeing these calls to action as you expect. Hamburger menu doesn't include all the links that are in the menus on the desktop. There's a simple reason for this. You have the primary navigation on most templates, and then you've got the hamburger menu, so-called hamburger or mobile menu, which is the sliding one. And they're both available on desktop, but most people don't display the hamburger menu on desktop. But that's the only option on mobile. And so it's kind of like this thing that you might set up and forget about it. And unless, again, you're checking every aspect of the mobile site, you might not realize that you have completely different options in the hamburger menu than you do the main, or you've changed them since you set up the site. And we really want that experience to be the same. When you get to a site, you want to see the same categories across the top, same options. When you get to the mobile site, you want to have them in that sliding menu on the left, so you can just quickly find what you're looking for. But the biggest thing to focus on with mobile web is just possibility for slow load times. This is just a fundamental issue of using a mobile website. Google says that 53% of visits are abandoned if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load, and 50% of people expect a page load in under 2 seconds. So for whatever reason, if they're having connectivity issues and your site's loading slow, they're going to lose interest and just bounce. Obviously, we want to focus on page load times for many reasons, but this is a big one. The mobile audience won't have that patience. On the other side, the other way to approach the mobile share of your audience, native iOS and Android apps. The biggest benefit with this is that you really own the channel. This is digital real estate on the user's phone that you own, and it's a direct communication with them. You are in no way dependent on Google or any big tech algorithms recommending your content to people. If we look at our stats, a large amount of our traffic is coming from Google and Facebook to our websites. There's no doubting that. We're really focused on SEO, and we have social media auto posts and things like that. But at the end of the day, they decide who sees what. As we were saying earlier, the downside of mobile web is, the upside of the app, because we are able to cache data locally in the native app. So that allows it to run much faster. Design independent of the website, but the content mirrors the website. So this is kind of like the opposite of the responsive web. I mean, any native app is going to be completely different code base. It's a different language than what we use on the website. There's nothing about it that's the same. You can make them look the same, but they are fundamentally independent in terms of the design. But the content should mirror the website. Any app that's set up, even as a third-party app, you should be using an RSS feed from the website, so it's just automatically updated. You don't want to be updating an app and your website, but I think most apps are set up that way. News apps can help publishers engage with their audience through a couple of unique tools that are only available in the app development environment, which is push notifications. Interesting stat on this from MobileLoud, only 10% of app users won't click on push notifications. So that tells you, this is an incredibly effective way to get people into your app. Once you get them into the app, you need to keep them engaged. The way we do it, and many apps are using related stories at the bottom of articles. So when you get to the bottom of a story, it's going to suggest other articles on that publication to read. This can also be personalized, looking at the history of what the user is looking at and the topics that they're interested in. So that keeps them engaged. Other types of media have really unique tools available within apps, video and audio specifically. For example, on our apps, we have audio articles built into it so you can listen to the news. And that's just a native feature of the apps. Because it's not in a mobile browser, we have access to things like, Siri controls and, so you can do voice control of the audio playlists and things like that. 85% of consumers prefer apps to mobile web. Again, from this reference at the bottom, they cite the reasons being more convenient, faster, and easier to browse. I've seen a lot of talk about how a website, everything is there. It's sometimes hard to get where you need to. With an app, it's literally just a very clear path. There's just one application that program is designed to deliver. So much more straightforward. The apps allow for an average visit time. This is based on our data, our hometown apps. Average visit time 2 to 5 times greater than the website's average visit time. So for the same publication, the audience going to the app is much more engaged per visit. And I don't know if it's causal, or is it because the most engaged readers are going to download the app and so they end up staying in the app longer, or is it the app itself that keeps them in? It's tough to say, but this is the end result. We're seeing more time in the app. And then potential for new revenue streams. A lot of apps, ours, for example, can do in-app purchases. You can run display advertising in there. So with a third-party app, you could monetize that independently of the website. You can sell subscriptions just to the app, or you can make it an integrated thing, which is kind of the standard now for most of the big brands. Okay, so just at a high level, how to make your newspaper mobile friendly. First path is mobile responsive CMS. Everyone's got a website, so just make the website responsive first. Make sure it accommodates all devices. Most website vendors are going to be responsive. Open source platforms like WordPress are all responsive. Native iOS and Android apps would be the second level once the site is responsive. This is usually a custom build around your CMS. If you have your own DIY CMS, it's definitely going to be that way. A lot of vendors can integrate with third parties, though. For us, we can do that. You don't have to be on our platform to have our apps. We can just through an RSS feed. So I've definitely seen that as an option. At a high level, how can we tap into that mobile audience more? There's just a couple things that I wanted to throw out there to make it easier for mobile readers to access your website or your app or wherever you have a web presence. This is an interesting case study that we saw from the Florida Weekly Group. They're generating mobile traffic with QR codes. So this has been an interesting technology that's come back. QR codes have been around for 15 years and they were kind of hot back then, but then they never really took off. But weirdly, with the pandemic and everyone scanning menus, things like that, no touching, it's kind of come back and people have QR codes on their apps. They're familiar with how to use their camera to scan the QR code. So this is kind of a new opportunity. Some examples that we saw in Florida were on pickup displays in hotels, restaurants, retail advertisers, and even in the print edition as an ad, just to bridge that gap from the print audience to mobile. Okay, now we got another survey. This is the final survey here. I'm curious where the audience shakes out here. This is going to sound like it comes out of nowhere, but there is a connection. How often do you get news from a podcast? Any kind of news, national news, local? 14% often, but then about 86% rarely or never. That's interesting. What we're actually seeing in the national data is that audio is the next phase of mobile, because actually a quarter of Americans get their news from podcasts sometimes or often. So using the same survey that we did here, we had the 14%, Americans are at 25%. So again, that's insightful. You want to look at the nationwide stats rather than just like our own personal behaviors, because they may not match our audience. Many third-party tools allow you to offer audio playlists as an easy way to consume large amounts of content on the go. Another way that you can cater to the audio mobile audience is by transcribing text content. There's a lot of software that'll do that. And capturing audio from live interviews. We do a lot of that at Our Hometown. Talking to publishers, we can just put it out on a podcast platform and video and repurpose it in a lot of ways. But one way that we're doing it that I wanted to let everyone know about, if you're interested, this is something that we could do as a third party. We automatically transcribe all your text articles on the website into an audio playlist. And then we can syndicate all those episodes as podcasts, channels to most popular podcast apps. And we have some publishers that are monetizing the audio only content in the audio apps. Like I was saying earlier, you can have that incremental revenue from the app. It's available as a third party, and we integrate with iOS and Android apps. All the app stuff that we've been talking about, the audio would integrate with that. And if anyone's interested in a free trial, you can sign up right here. And I see we have questions coming in here. Let me get to this. This is from OMC. Have you seen a decrease of average visit times on a newspaper's website if they have a certain number of available readable free articles? So I haven't done that kind of a comparison between free and hard paywall sites. And it would be tough because you'd really want to see more like a comparison of, one publication that has a hard paywall and then it goes to some free, and just to have it more of a control. So I don't really have an answer for you on that, unfortunately. Oh, Cecile, yeah, thank you for this question. More examples of how to promote your app and your mobile website and where to use QR codes to promote. This is a great question. The only example that I've seen, and Florida Weekly has really spearheaded this, and I've been sharing it with our publishers. They do it in airports, actually. I recently saw that on LinkedIn from the publisher there. If anyone has any other ideas, throw them out to me in the chat. But I feel like anywhere that people will let you put these signs. If it could be your partner advertisers, little cocktail signs in restaurants and bars, any kind of tourist position. Florida Weekly, they're in Fort Myers. I guess they do have a local airport there. So, he's catching people as they're coming in and he's hooking them on the Florida Weekly brand right there. That's a great question. I'll continue to look out for examples for this. I'm just trying to push the QR code technology in general and convince people that your audience is used to using this now, so we should embrace it. So that's all that I've got for today. Let me know if you have any other questions. I thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Today in News Tech, the podcast covering innovation in digital journalism. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you tomorrow.
At Our Hometown, we help newspapers build WordPress websites, design native apps, and develop digital subscription models. If you are interested in a free prototype of your publication on WordPress, go to ourhometown.com and click the Contact Us button.